Indeed, from good to great. Good evening to you, Chief Guest, Honorable Prime Minister, our guests of honor, President of CIMA, Mr. Steven Swentuzelski, and the President of ICC India, Mr. Jawahar Vadivelu, our special guest, Mr. Austin Fernando, Ambassador Delegate to India, VIPs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Most Admired Companies of Sri Lanka 2018, organized in partnership with the International Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka, ICCSL, and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA Sri Lanka. These awards are intended to recognize companies that are the rest in terms of not only their financial performance, but also on the value they create to their shareholders, their customers, their employees, and the general community. These awards, as you will see tonight, attest to the admiration of the nation. We just saw good to great, and we are here today to celebrate champions, all of them in their respective spheres of business and activity. And we have a young fellowship holder from a master's degree in speech and drama from the University of West London, a student of The Voice by Ishan Dilanarol, who will celebrate the champions tonight. Please welcome Shavin Ilaperuma, ladies and gentlemen.
I paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence but committed no crime. And bad mistakes I've made a few. I've got my shells and kicked in my face, but I'll come through. Champions, my friend, and we'll keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions, and we are the champions. There's no time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world. Taken my bows and my curtain calls. I've got my fame and fortune and everything that goes with it. I thank you all. It's been no bed of roses, no pleasure cruise. I consider it a challenge before all human race, but I ain't gonna lose. My friend, and we'll keep on fighting till the end. And we are the champions, and we are the champions. There's no time for losers, 'cause we are the champions. Because we champions, my friend, and we'll keep on fighting till the end, 'cause we are the champions, and we are the champions. There's no time for losers, 'cause we are the champions. Sri Lanka.
Indeed, another Freddie Mercury in the making. But this young man is just out of school, St. Peter's College, and he's only 19 years old. I think he deserves another round of applause, all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Shavin Ilaperuma. We'd now like to move into the lighting of the oil lamp, not the traditional one, but the 2018 version, electronic version. I'd like to invite to do us the honors our chief guest today, Honorable Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Just press a tab and the lamp comes on. We also invite the President of SIMA, Mr. Steven Swentuzelski, the President of ICC India, Mr. Jawahal Vadivelu. We also have our special guest this evening, Mr. Austin Fernando, the CEO of India Aeon Heavy Consulting, Sandeep Chowdhury, Mr. Nista Kasim, the editor of the Daily Financial Times, Mr. Pankaj Banerjee, the CEO of AIA, Mr. Ravi Abesurya, Chairman Panel of Judges, the Regional Vice President of Asia Pacific SIMA, Mr. Venkat Ramanan, and the Chairman of ICCSL, Mr. Dinesh Virakudi, ladies and gentlemen. So we had Mr. Steven Swentuzelski, Mr. Jawahal Vadivelu, we had Mr. Austin Fernando, Mr. Sandeep Chowdhury, Mr. Nista Kasim, Mr. Pankaj Banerjee, Mr. Ravi Abesurya, Mr. Venkat Ramanan, and Mr. Dinesh Virakudi, lighting of the electronic oil lamp this evening to launch the Most Admired Companies of Sri Lanka 2018, organized in partnership by the ICCSL and SIMA Sri Lanka, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we all now rise for the national anthem, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The chairman of the International Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Paul Polman, is unable to be here today. He sends you all his greetings and best wishes, but we do have a video version of his welcome speech right now on screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, hello, everyone. As chair of the International Chamber of Commerce, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2018 Most Admired Companies of Sri Lanka competition, where the Sri Lankan business community has handpicked 10 companies that stand out, both for their financial performance as well as their commitment to the wider economic and social development. And this is now more important than ever, as we face many daunting challenges, from widespread effects of runaway climate change to continued inequality and poverty. Business doesn't just impact these global trends, but it is actually also impacted by them. That means that we cannot be bystanders or simply content with business as usual. Fortunately, with the Sustainable Development Goals, we already have the framework in place for delivering long-term sustainable as well as equitable growth. And as the world's largest and most representative business organization, ICC is fully committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, last year, ICC made history in becoming the first private sector observer to the UN General Assembly. Our SDG Business Forum in New York brings together business and government leaders each year to discuss policies and initiatives that can unleash the positive potential of business to deliver both economic as well as social returns. ICC Sri Lanka, our national committee here, has been exemplary in this mission. And I would like to particularly thank Dinesh Verakodi for his leadership as chair of ICC Sri Lanka in this regards. ICC Sri Lanka has also been instrumental in promoting the World Trade Organization's Trade Facility Agreement, a landmark global deal with the potential to help small businesses connect to global markets, with a significant implication for economic growth as well as development. It is encouraging to see the steps taken by the Sri Lankan government to advance the SDGs on a national level, including the recently launched National Sustainability Discourse. It is vital for public and private sectors to come together to help drive sustainable development. The private sector has significant knowledge and resources that it is willing to contribute to a wider economic and social goal, as the companies showcased during this evening's event demonstrate. A world in which the SDGs become a reality.
That was the ICC chairman, Mr. Paul Coleman.
Where
we now have the president of ICC India, Mr. Jawahar Vedivelu, who is also chairman of Cameo Corporate Services Limited, aged 52 years. He holds MBA degrees from the Asian Institute of Management Philippines and the Booth School of Business University of Chicago. He has a rich experience in a broad spectrum of financial services in India that includes mortgage, finance, stockbroking, insurance, registry, and transfer, and asset management. Please welcome Mr. Jawahar Vedivelu, President of ICC India. Ladies and gentlemen.
The Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the President of ICC Sri Lanka, Mr. Dinesh Verakodi, the President of CIMA, Mr. Steven Swintoszilski, distinguished members of the judging panel, and winners of today's awards and distinguished guests. I would like to firstly thank Mr. Dinesh Verakodi for being so gracious as to extend me an invitation to join you all as you celebrate the 20 most admired companies of your country. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Dinesh Verakodi in Paris at the ICC World Council meetings during the summer. We recognized there was much that ICC India and ICC Sri Lanka could do to work together on matters of trade and arbitration. And as the chairman, Mr. Paul Polman, said, on the UN's SDGs as well. We recognized there was much that ICC India and Sri Lanka could do to work on not only trade and arbitration, but also in a manner that further deepens the relationship between the two chapters. ICC India is an active member of ICC worldwide. As India integrates further economically with the rest of the world, multilateral trade facilitation has become an important area of focus for ICC India. And so has arbitration. India is bound to emerge as an important center of arbitration as arbitration becomes accepted as the preferred method of resolving commercial disputes, both speedily and efficiently. There is much that both ICC India and ICC Sri Lanka can do to foster a partnership that draws on the combined expertise and resources of both organizations. It is a great and deserving recognition for this evening's 20 awardees to be chosen by ICC Sri Lanka and CIMA to be amongst the most admired companies. In the context that companies operate in today, where the operating environment is in a constant state of flux, where the dynamics of competition are so severe, and in a world that is constantly being disrupted by the forces of technology, climate change, customer preferences, and geopolitics, the pace at which companies need to be evolving to sustain themselves and to keep themselves relevant is by itself greatly challenging. So for these companies to have remained on the top of the constant forces of disruption and to be regarded as admirable is a singular honor that deserves to be recognized and applauded. It is fitting, therefore, that ICC Sri Lanka has chosen to assemble here under this roof this evening companies that exemplify greatness, greatness which speaks for itself and is worthy of emulation. To be considered admirable, I would reckon companies need to live by their core values, be passionate about superior customer experience, involve themselves deeply with the communities that they are part of, empower their employees, adopt high governance standards, and to be focused on long-term value creation. But there is something missing in that set. In the times gone by, when the pace of change was a lot slower, it was possible for firms to remain in the top quartile by merely being rigorous at doing these things well. But in a rapidly evolving and fast-paced external environment that we live in today, companies need the instinct deep down to survive. They would need to sustain themselves and endure constant disruption so that they make it possible for themselves to remain at the top of the pyramid. While being large is a matter of comfort, that by itself doesn't guarantee longevity. Scarce capital and resources are increasingly flowing to firms that have the capacity to disrupt industries regardless of their present size. Bill Gates, during one of his visits to India, when asked what is it that made it possible for firms such as Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple to become so large so quickly and to scale up globally that firms in India could not achieve as easily, he said that it was about how ruthlessly capital and other resources got reallocated to its most optimal uses in the US, which other countries failed to achieve in equal measure. He said that for every Google that gets made in the US, there are perhaps 1,000 other firms that bite the dust or are acquired by other successful firms. It has been our tendency, culturally perhaps, to persist with the suboptimal firms in which precious and scarce resources gets locked in for much too long, such that the most deserving and efficient of firms are starved of much needed capital and remain stifled, being unable to realize their fullest potential. But with global capital now flowing freely across geographies, that mindset is now changing. So to remain admirable, firms need to position themselves to be worthy of the capital and resources that are so critical to their long-term success and survival. Not only do you need to be good at what you do, you need to have the capacity to disrupt, to remain at the top of the food chain. I'm often reminded of what a Sri Lankan gentleman, Mr. Alan Patmaraja, told me many years ago when he was the chairman of Great Eastern Insurance of Singapore. He said, when the rate of change externally exceeds the rate of change internally, that's the beginning of troubles. That this was always true, but it's truer now than ever before. Companies don't just have to deal with change, they need to be adept at dealing with total disruption. Such is the pace of disruption that the status quo is being challenged all the time, and before we can even blink an eye, industries run the risk of being rendered entirely redundant. Need we remind ourselves of what Amazon is doing to the world of consumer retailing? While all change, even disruptive change, is largely positive, what's disturbing, however, is that even seemingly well-run firms are destroyed in the process. Industries are fast getting concentrated, and we are willy-nilly allowing for that aggregation of power in the hands of a few. The process of maturation of industries was long drawn out earlier. Product life cycles were longer, and it took years before the winners in any given industry were declared. That has changed. It is not the pace at which industries are maturing that is a cause for concern, but it is the concentration of power in industries we seem to be turning a blind eye to that is greatly concerning. The adverse consequences that it has on consumer choice and consumer interests are undeniable. But that is a matter of discussion and debate for the competition commissions around the world. Perhaps it is our perception of longevity, sustainability, and success that needs to be altered. In the years gone by, businesses had the luxury of living the life of turtles. They could well exist for 200 years and could afford to be slow and gentle. But they have had to learn to adapt to living the house of a housefly in these days, whose life is fast-paced and the transformation is rapid. They hardly live for 200 years any longer, but they live successfully nevertheless. Indeed, our definition of success and longevity has altered. That perhaps is the new reality. I take this opportunity to once again congratulate all the award winners this evening, and I do sincerely wish them the best of both, the capacity for rapidness and transformation of a housefly and the longevity and endurance of a turtle. I would like to thank ICC Sri Lanka and its president, Mr. Dinesh Virakodi, for inviting me to be in your midst and for his commendable work in furthering the cause of ICC in this part of the world. Thank you.
That was a beautiful comparison, the housefly and the turtle. Thank you very much, Mr. Vedivelu, Mr. Jawahar Vedivelu, President of ICC India. Ladies and gentlemen, before we bring on our next speaker, I suggest you listen very carefully to the words of what's to follow right now.
Watching while the world is closing in. You and I will never dream again. Sleeping while she's suffering within. So stop waiting for the world. Go on and be the change. She's waiting for you, or she's waiting for you. This is our universe. Don't try to make it worse. No, it's never gonna end. So today, let's just begin. We gotta change the world. We gotta change how we think. Try to make a change. We gotta change the way we live. Change it now. dust we were. You and I will never see again. Through the smoke of greed and selfishness within. You and I are chasing hope away. The sun will rise and we'll rise again. So stop waiting for the world. Go on and make the change. She's waiting for you. Yeah, she's waiting for you. This is our universe. How we all should be shamed. No, it's never gonna end. So today, let's try again. We gotta change the world. We gotta change the way we live. We're gonna think of every bit of plastic that we throw away and what it becomes to the working masses of the world. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We have a long way to go. We have only just started. And if we want the world to be a better place, we're gonna start now. Right now. Try to make a change before it's too late. Before we watch our children take that road, that never-ending road to total destruction.
Let's try to make a change. Let's world a better place.
Please.